Hey gang, we are near Arcadia, Rhode Island right now, part of or near Exeter, and we're on this spooky mountain called Mount Tom. Now there's a legend here that we're going to talk about right here that happened back in the early 1800s, and it's a very spooky story, and we're actually going to walk to the graveyard where this all may have ended, probably. It's hidden in the woods, there's no trail, there's no evidence that anyone has gone back there for a long, long time. So we're going to walk down this trail here, and I'm going to tell you the story. Well, the trail, I should say, starts here very briefly, but I have a feeling that what you see right here is a trail made by the deer for bedding. And it doesn't go in that far at all. But let's go investigate. On the GPS, it shows it's about maybe 400 or 500 feet this way in this direction. So we're gonna just walk in as I tell you the story, and we'll see if we can find it and what may remain. So again, this happened back in the 1800s. I've got to give a shout out to Tommy the cat, who, when we were doing another episode together, we were walking out of the woods and he was telling me this story, this legend. Well, it was an early settlement, the early settlement days here in Rhode Island and all over. There was a little farm here at the base of this Mount Tom, and there lived a farmer with his daughter. Now, early one evening, there was a peddler who came through. Now, this was pretty common in the day. The peddlers would ply their trade, and people would get to know them because they would come in at least once a year on their same route to peddle their wares. And so it was he who came to the door of this farmer and daughter in search of shelter, in search of food, and of course to try to peddle some of his valuable trinkets. He seemed very kind, and he asked if he could stay there the night. He needed shelter, and he was very hungry. Now the farmer seemed put off by this. He didn't like this, but the peddler came up quickly. He was quick thinking, and he said, "You know what? In return for some shelter and some food, I will sharpen all your knives." And the farmer said, "Okay. That sounds like a good plan." Now there is no trail here whatsoever, but I think I'm going to head. There looks like a hollow right up ahead here, and that is the direction. I'm just kind of following my just general orientation of direction, and we do have some sun, so I'm able to kind of get a general east-west, north-south bearing. So, like I said, the farmer agreed, and evening came quickly, and the daughter cooked a fine dinner. He had chicken and porridge with a freshly baked pie for dessert, and oh, did he like it. The peddler devoured it greedily, and then had his dessert. He sat back in his chair and he said, "Ah, thank you. This was so good. And now I will begin my work of sharpening your knives." And here's a little bit of a clearing. I don't see anything yet here. A stump. Let's go this way. Let's continue. So he excused himself from the table and he began preparing for his task. Now, in the meantime, the daughter cleared the table. She cleaned everything up. She bid her father and the peddler good night, and she went upstairs to bed. Oh, we are blocked by these thick, long needle pines. Let's look over here. We might be reaching a dead end here, guys. Up here. I can see beyond the trees an opening, it looks like. A little bit of like woods. Alright, so I'm gonna get wet, but we're gonna go right through these trees. I got the camera up high. Okay. Oh yes, look at this. There is a clearing here. Alright, let me get myself oriented. Wow, look at this. Very interesting. We are in a hollow. That is for sure. This is where we just came from. I came through these boulders here. I don't see any gravestones. I do see some big boulders here. Let's keep going in. I do see a sign back there. It might be for the cemetery marking. So the peddler quietly began his work. Everything was quiet. But then all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, the daughter was startled. She woke up. She heard noises downstairs. It was moaning and thumping. And she wondered what was happening. And then all of a sudden there was a crash on the floor. So she put her robe on. She ran downstairs, only to see her father standing over the body of the peddler. He was dead. And there around him was blood all over the floor. She looked to the side. She was horrified, and she saw down on the side of the room his satchel that he had all his wares and trinkets in. There, spilled out onto the floor, were all kinds of valuables. There appeared to be some luminous treasures. There were pieces of silver and gold. And there in the pile, spread across the floor, she saw a beautiful ring. She picked it up. She thought it was beautiful. And then she put it on her finger. And she asked her father if she could keep it. Here I see a sign. Oh yeah. It says Rhode Island Historical Cemetery. Exeter 65. So this is registered. Historic cemeteries. So this is it. But there are no headstones or any markings that I can see, so presumably people are buried here unmarked. But this is an opening. This must be it. Well, the father looked at her, and you can imagine after what he did, he was probably puzzled, confused, his adrenaline up. He started probably thinking, what did I do? What did I really do here? And now, what's going to happen? What is going to happen to me and my daughter? the authorities, the sheriff will come from the other county. He won't believe me. And then his daughter started talking. And she said, look at all the blood. And she started to get nervous. And now he started to get nervous. And he looked at her and he thought to himself, she's going to talk. She's going to tell somebody. What'll I do? He grabbed her by the wrist and he reached down to the peddler's body, and then there was a knife sticking out of his chest. The peddler, it was a carving knife, and he unsheathed the knife from the chest, all bloody, and he grabbed his daughter. As she opened her mouth, he quickly put the knife in her mouth, and with the tip of the knife, he cut out a good part of her tongue and part of her cheek. She was scarred for life, and now she would not be able to talk. What do we do now? He thought. Of course, he nursed his daughter to stop the bleeding, and he got her calmed down after a few hours. That night, after she was put in the bedroom, she was in pain. He closed the door and he went about the business of an idea, and that is to bury the body. But where? Under the hearth of the fireplace. What better place? No one would look. No one would know. So he carefully lifted the rocks, the flat rocks that formed the hearth on the floor. He dug in the soft earth a deep hole. And there he threw the crumpled body of the peddler, along with his empty satchel, the leather satchel. It was never talked about again. The father, the farmer, the daughter, they lived on together. Of course, as being scarred as she was never to marry. She never really got out of that house. Now, of course, many years later, father passed away, and the daughter felt she was more free, and her conscience got the best of her. And when she was a very old woman, she decided she had to tell somebody to get it off her mind, to get it off her chest. So she had a friend, the neighbor, who lived 3 miles away, and she went and she told the story. She knew she was going to meet her maker soon, and she died the next day. Now, many years passed. The house stood vacant, and the trees and the weeds and the vines took over, and the roof caved in, the walls caved in. It was going back to its original form, just earth. But the fireplace, the hearth, and the chimney remained, as we see in many artifacts of homes, of ruins. The fireplace and the chimney remain. And go to 1950. There were some children from this area who were playing, and they were very nearby. Of course, it was a completely forgotten place. one of the children heard a groan in the distance, in the woods. They bent down, they listened. One of the other children heard it. They went in the woods. There was an old path that they were following. Now it grew louder and louder. The children saw through the branches, through the trees. They saw something. They basically looked up and they could see a chimney way over there. So they went there, and there they found the fireplace. And all of a sudden there was a huge groan coming from the fireplace. They screamed and ran. They ran through the woods and straight to the nearest child's parents' house. And when they got there, they told a horrible story. Now the parents, they grew up here. They heard the same legend. They knew the story of the peddler. So they said, take us there. So the children backtracked. They went back. They took him to the spot. The fathers, they brought picks and shovels. The mothers were right behind them. Everyone was curious, and the first thing they did is they started taking the rocks away. They brushed back the leaves, and there were the stones, and they pulled the stones up. And there was the soft earth. The black, soft earth right under those stones. And they started digging. And what happened? Well, one of the spades hit something hard. They cleared the dirt away, and it was a leather satchel, black, covered with mud, rotten, molded. It was empty. So they thought, this has to be the peddler. So they kept digging, and then thunk. They hit something hard and hollow. They cleared the dirt away, and it was a skull. And there they found the rest of a human skeleton. Well, out of respect for the peddler, they knew it was the peddler, they knew the story was true. They took the bones, they put it in a small coffin that they had made, and they probably came here to this place. A good chance. Right back there. And they reburied the peddler right in this cemetery. His grave was probably unmarked. Nobody knows. But I have to ask, do you think he's here? Do you think he's here today? Did we just walk over his grave?